An Asian American viciously beaten on a New York City subway.
The surge in hate crimes against Asian Americans only getting worse, and some of the accounts are extremely violent.
We should talk about last night. A gunman entered 3 different Atlanta area spas and shot and killed 8 people. A majority of the victims were Asian, and all but one were women and our...
And in this country, what should be a celebratory time coincides with a disturbing surge of racist attacks against Asian Americans.
Racist rhetoric against Asians and Asian Americans has become a real problem in the U.S. amid the coronavirus that originated in China.
Reports of coronavirus have spread across the U.S. So have incidents of anti-Asian violence.
We're not only worried about our health, but our safety as well, with reports of attacks against Asian Americans, both physical and verbal, dominating our social media pages.
Asian Americans are facing discrimination not felt since the Japanese-American internment camps during World War II. High unemployment and boycotts of businesses have ravaged their communities.
Vicious hate crimes against Asian Americans who've been attacked, harassed, blamed, and scapegoated. At this very moment, so many of them are fellow Americans. They're on the front lines of this pandemic trying to save lives. And still, they're forced to live in fear for their lives just walking down streets in America. It's wrong, it's un-American, and it must stop.
Welcome back to another episode of PA Special News. I'm your anchor, Lami. So in this PA News episode, we will be hearing an interview from March Wong and Dr. An, a professor of social studies and education in the Department of Elementary and Early Childhood Education at Kennesaw State University in Georgia. March first met Dr. An when he heard her speak at the 38th annual Winter Roundtable, a pandemic of racism hosted by Teachers College Columbia University. March invited Dr. An to speak on this episode because the goal of PA Special News is to bring awareness and education to our school community about different social issues, such as in our past episodes when we've talked about the Black Lives Matter movement and about the hate it received and still continues to receive. In this episode, we want to address the problem of the increase in anti-Asian racism and hate crimes during this COVID-19 pandemic. However, we also want to learn about the history of this racism and would like to more so focus on the role of education in helping to solve this problem, because these issues have been more prevalent in the news, and even recently, there was an anti-Asian hate crime in Atlanta where a Caucasian man went into 3 spas and began shooting and killing 8 innocent people, most of which were Asian women. As we can see, these hate crimes are beginning to become an ongoing issue, and the Asian American community does not feel safe, not even in their own neighborhoods, which is not okay. Let's all take a moment of silence for the victims that passed in the recent Atlanta shooting.
So my name is Soyeon An, and let's see, I'm professor at Kennesaw State University, which is in like about 40 minutes above north of Atlanta, Georgia. So it's a metro Atlanta area, and I think I can also say that originally coming from South Korea in United States for my doctoral study, and since then I stayed in United States. So it's been almost like 20 years. I'm the mother of 2 children. Like I have 2 daughters, one in 7th grade, the other one is in 3rd grade. So I have a beautiful 2 daughters. I'm proud of mama. Let's see, what I teach is that, like, you know, my students are all the classroom teachers. So Some of them are pre-service teachers, so that means they are going to be soon to be elementary school teacher. And when I teach about the graduate course, then those are the teachers who are current school teacher, elementary school teacher, who wanna get the master's degree in education, who wanna produce, advance their knowledge and skills as a classroom teacher. Content area is the social studies, so it's all about like how to teach social studies, particularly the history, in a more honest and truthful and accurate way. So then like we won't see this what we see today.
I think the subject you teach is very like it really does help for the know we have, because this is the main problem. Like, and one of the questions I'm gonna ask is like why you think the school don't ever teach the ethnics class, you know, like so if they don't learn, like for example, is I'm from China, I'm the international, and also I'm not English speaker, but I didn't realize this kind of situation, you know, like because no one talk about that, and so maybe that is why we are so shy to speak out and let people outside know what really exactly the Asian group's personality is.
Right.
The whole purpose of this interview is to educate our school or our community about the increase in anti-Asian racism during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we also want to learn about the history of this racism, and would like to focus on the role of education in help to solve this problem. Like, what made you want to focus on the anti-Asian racism in the United States? And because I heard your background is from Korea, you might not born in the United States, but why you start focusing this kind of issue in here?
Okay. About why I'm interested in like studying or researching about like anti-Asian, like a racism or the Asian American history, I think it's all related to who we are, right? Like really our historical positionality, like who we are really shaping what we do. And as you see, like, you know, I'm Asian immigrants, right? Because I'm Asian immigrants, and also now I'm mother of the Asian American children. So for me, like what's going on today, especially regarding like Asian American community, whether it's racism or any other issues in like Asian American struggle or the successes, those are like a personal to me. So it's not just about my profession. I need to like continue my job. So that's what I'm doing. More than that, it's more about like my personal thing, like, you know, how I navigate this America. Because as an Asian living in the United States, this is also like my personal struggle, right? And also as a mother, I see my kids. And also now that as a teacher, educator, I see the elementary school teacher, most of them, especially in Georgia, like 90% are white, right? If I don't do the job well, then they will go and teach it the way that they were being taught, which means that there's nothing about Asian American history when they teach about American history. So yeah, for me, why I'm interested in, it's a personal and also like a professional, everything is intertwined.
Yeah, because you mentioned like who we are, this is really serious issue, because we are like have a much history and old cultural, so we have a real unique identity for the Asian group. But I also want to, based on your story, I want to ask, have you had the experience that treat unfair, like it really happened on you?
Oh yeah, of course. So I think it's a lot of it. Sometimes like if it's a subtle racism, it's hard to catch, right? If you're really conscious of it. But then like I'm teaching and even researching, my research area is also about anti-Asian racism, Asian American history, the curriculum and textbook, children's book. So I am like conscious about this whole issue, right? This is my personal and professional area, expert area. So yeah, whenever, even after this, since the lockdown, like a COVID-19 began, like when I go to like in a grocery or when I'm walking outside and taking a walk with my kids, I'm conscious of how people's like changed their like, you know, interaction with me, like they are kind of away from me, right? That's sort of racism. But then bottom line, they see that like we as a nation, they carry the disease, right? We are the disease spreader or the bearer. So yeah, I can totally see that, not only about the sort of racism, but then also like, you know, the outright racism, like calling like a, you know, oh yeah, you're Chinese, go back to your country. Yeah, I hear. And then also another form is not really physical violence so far I've been experienced, but mostly about the verbal violence, whether it's verbally, but then also like, you know, in the written format. For example, when I'm teaching, right? Because my students, as a professor, I get like a teaching evaluation at the end of the course, right? Some of this, although I'm proud I'm good at teaching, but sometimes once in a while, one or two students write the comment that, well, if you hate America, go back to China. I'm not from China, but still student thinking if we all look like Asian, they think, oh, we are Chinese. Go back to China. Or like, you know, if you hate American democracy and capitalism, go back to your communist country. South Korea is not communist country. So anyhow, yeah, those like, you know, the verbal violence, we can just ignore, but it's not, right? Deep down, it can easily be activated, right? Like those racist view can be activated to the more like a severe form later on if there's a certain, whatever they are like fear about like, you know, Asians, right? That's what we see during the COVID-19 right now. Like we see the deep-seated anti-Asian racism become like, you know, activate in the form of like a really visible form, like, you know, physical violence today.
Yeah, it is so hard to change the mindset because that have maybe 100 years. The old mindset already stuck their head, so it is really hard to fix that. And also, I think this problem start maybe 50 years before. You know, like since to now, and maybe a half century already passed, and the people still have this kind of mindset. It is really tough work to fix that. But I believe if we start letting use like our generation to make that change, I think it will be happen. It's possible.
Right.
I have that kind of like confident and hope one day this is real gonna be changed.
Right.
Okay, let's start talk about like your presentation in the conference. Like during the recent College Columbia University conference, pandemic of racism, you discussed the history of anti-Asian racism and history of racializing disease. During the presentation, you also shared about anti-Asian language used by the previous administration and some other government official to describe and discuss COVID-19. What have been the effect or impact that language? Is their language some unique to previous administration?
Can you a little bit, because I kind of follow you through, but like
maybe too long. Like what I want to ask, like the language that speak especially to the Asians use those language to attack the Asian. What is been effect or impact of this language? Is this language something unique to previous administration?
Okay, so like then Trump administration, right? Since the COVID-19 began last year, like January, the first case in United States, and then starting from like a late January and February, the then President Trump, and then his like a conservative political allies and some conservative media outlet, they started to call it like a China virus, Chinese virus, Kung Fu virus, right? Like Wuhan virus. And they say, well, it's not racist. They just say, it started in China, so we just call it China virus. They excuse that themselves like this is not racist, right? But then already like, you know, history shows the moment that like, you know, the dominant society or the politicians, like political leaders put the disease with a certain ethnic group or racial group, whatever the social identity group, then some of the publics, right, they just believe that, oh, that means these are these are the people that we need to blame for this public health crisis. There's a long history of this, but still this administration and politicians, they keep saying, well, we are not racist, it's just a fact that it started China, so I want to call it China virus. So they just wanted to just negate this long history, all the many cases evidence that you cannot name a certain disease with a certain specific ethnic group. And the World Health Organization, right? WHO already, they announced that we are not never put the disease, name the disease with a certain ethnic or the racial groups, but still this the past administration kept doing it, and you see the result, right? After the political leaders are starting doing it, the conservative nativists and the white supremacists, they say, oh, it's all China to blame. So they feel a courage, they had the courage to go out and discriminate and doing the bodily harm to the people who look like China or Chinese, right? So this is serious. And then today, this administration, at least it's I want to just highlight that this is really historic moment. I think the Biden is actually the first president in U.S. history that publicly announced as a president, right? President Oval Office, White House, saying this is wrong, right? But then before Biden, no president say it. At the time of the anti-violence how can I say, going on. Prior to that, the Reagan administration, Reagan and Clinton and Bush, they did it. They apologized for the anti-Asian violence, but that was after 40 years after Japanese incarceration. When the Japanese incarceration was going on, that was during the time of Trump, the FDR. FDR believed that, well, they are suspicious. Japanese are suspicious, so they need to go into the incarceration camp, right? Although later on, Clinton and Reagan, they say they admit the anti-Asian racism is wrong, but that is afterwards, right? But this Biden is, in that sense, Biden is the first president who said, right, this is wrong at the moment when there's anti-Asian racism going on. But the thing is, he said it, but oftentimes, right, many people, their action doesn't follow what they say. So we need to watch and vigilantly see and push the Biden administration doing more than what just saying it.
So I feel the same too. If the presidents when they give to the public speak, this is Chinese virus, this is all blame to the China, and this is our responsibility. This is not the same as the president speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person represents the whole country, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel the confidence to this administration,
mm-hmm.
because he really stand up and says this is not we should blame, this is not we should focus on that. The issue is to solve this pandemic, not just blame a specific group and we put that punish to them. This is unfair. I feel same confident as you until now. How does the certain anti-Asians discrimination compared to the past? Is there actually an increase in hate, or is there more awareness?
So I think it's hard to compare. The situation is so different, right? Back in the day, thinking about how much technology, how much technology developed. So then back in the day, when we thinking about first Asia, first large a group of Asians came to United States, those starting with the Chinese immigrants or laborers, right? In the 1800s. But those are the time that, unless you are living in California, right? You don't know. If you're living on the West Coast, if on the East Coast, if you're living in the South, you don't know what's going on. But back there, with the tech, based on the available technology or the media communication, right? It's all through the news media, print media, right? It's not a daily news kind of thing. So. But back in the day, in that area, in California in particular, lynching of Chinese labor, right? The massacre of Chinese laborers by angry the white mob because of they think a Chinese taking away their job. That was everyday thing, discriminating. Not only that, the law-wise, they were not even considered as equal, American citizen, or they were not treated equally, right? So it's just a brutal, brutal director, the physical violence was everywhere. But then when you think about the big picture, because we don't have many Chinese or the Asian immigrants in the other parts of the United States, so it's hard to compare the number wise, and also given the different context today, we have every day we can see, right? Right at this moment we can hold the phone and we can see what's going on in California, what's going on in Oregon, what's going on in Georgia. So and with that, and also because of at least some progress, although we have far to go, these days no more, right? No more a legal racism. Asians, or you cannot marry non-Asian people. Asians, you are not allowed to eat. You don't have equal opportunity as an employment. You cannot go to college. There's no law that bar Asians participating in a civic or economic participate. Although there's a subtle racism, glass ceilings, right? But legally Asians are equally treated. We can go to public school. Back in the day, Asians not even provide, even if we are paying the tax-paying citizen, U.S.-born U.S. citizen, but Asians are not even provide the public schools when white kids are provided public school education, right? So compared to back in the day and today, at least better, a legal sense wise, but then still people's a deep-seated anti-Asian racism. Asian as a foreigner, they are forever foreigner. Asians are not, the American, right? And then sometimes we also seen as Asians are a good minority, model minority, but they think whenever Asians feel we are taking away their job, then they will say go back to China, go back to Asia again. Those still, and then with these days the violence too. Back in the day, violence is more, physical violence more, but these days we don't feel we don't see it regularly. But it's because of, I think, a lack of reporting. FBI's or the police, they are rarely, they relatively rarely report Asian, anti-Asian violence as a hate crime kind of thing, because they don't. It's not even hate crime. So there's a lack of estimation about anti-Asian a discrimination, violence. And then oftentimes also Asians, although we are kind of socialized in a way that America belongs to white people. So then even if we feel my rights being violated, but relatively less reporting, hey, I had a discrimination, I got discriminated in my job, or my the school application or kind of thing. So yeah, there's things going on, but I think it's underestimated how much it gets better. Back in the day, compared to back in the day, these days with all the technology, I think we can have instant an access to what's going on in the world. But then again, people choose, right? People choose which channel that they are going to watch. So people just forever, what? Anti-Asian racism today? Why? So some people we are not even aware. So even we cannot even say that, well, with the current technology and a communication tool, people are more aware of it. Well, it depends. Some people just watching the channel that they love to watch. They don't even listen to uncomfortable news, right? Uncomfortable knowledge, uncomfortable news. So yeah, it depends.
I have a question. You mentioned about when the people don't realize they have a discrimination to the Asians group. Are they part of them, or are they didn't treat unfairly to the Asians? Do you think?
Can you ask me again?
I'm sorry. When you're telling the people they didn't realize they are discrimination. Are they part of discrimination, or they didn't realize they are doing that?
You mean the people who are discriminating Asian, they don't even thinking they are discriminating?
Yes.
Yeah, I think some of them, I think that's too, they might say, oh, Asians, they are not American, so it's not even discriminating. It's they deserve it.
It's so funny.
No.
I really.
Yeah.
speechless, like especially to hear that. This is unbelievable.
Right.
And also you mentioned that in past the time the Asians and child cannot allow to go to the public school.
Right.
You also mentioned this case in the conference. I remember this for the tape
versus like yeah.
Yeah, that is right. But I never studied this case before in my history class.
Right.
Like, why do you think that is happened, and how can we change that?
Right. So even like right, like, I grew up in Korea and learning about US history as a part of like a tiny little part of the world history, right? And then I came to United States as a doctoral student and studying like American history, how to teach American history for the young kids. Then even though in my doctoral program, I didn't even learn about Asian American, the school segregation cases, right? So then like it depends on like, it needs my own like a search, my own like history. There must be some case, right? Asians in the United States for long. So my question was like this, right? When we teach especially in Georgia, kids learn about school. The 5th grade, they learn about civil rights movement, and they learn about the Brown versus Board of Education case, right? So and then the 1st grade in Georgia, they learn about Ruby Bridge. She's one of, after Brown case passed, Ruby Bridge, she's one of the American child hero who fight against like, the school segregation, inequality against the Black community, right? But, when we teach kids only about a Brown case and Ruby Bridge, what kids can get the message from the school is that, okay, school segregation, it's all about white versus Black. So white kids go to white school, Black kids go to Black school, but the white school, they say it's separate but equal, but white school is a lot better than the Black school. So then the Martin Luther King or the Thurgood Marshall and Brown, they asking for the, school integration. Now we are happily ever after. That is already wrong. We are not happily ever still a United States. Schools are, voluntarily segregated because of a lot of like racism and the classism. Not only that, another flaw in that narrative is that school segregation is not only white versus Black racial binary. Like indigenous people, right? Indigenous children, they were taken away their parents from their community. They were sent to the boarding school. They were like harshly discriminated. The school was for the cultural genocide for them. The Mexican children, Mexican American, although back in the day they were legally white, but then they were white people treated Mexican as like, non-white, right? They're dirty, non-white, inferior. So they didn't want their beautiful white children to go to school with the Mexican children. So they segregated Mexican children to the Mexican school. For that, when it comes to Chinese and Asian Americans, Asian immigrants are starting to come like in large number in 1800. So they are already here, even if the American law during that time, didn't give Chinese immigrants to be naturalized U.S. citizen. But their children, because of the U.S. law, if the children born in United States, they are automatically U.S. citizen. And then their parents are tax-paying citizens, which means then these U.S.-born American citizens, although having the Chinese face, they have a legal right to attend the public school. But then especially in California, they didn't even provide the school for the children. They have a segregated school for Black, segregated school for the indigenous people, segregated school for the Mexican, but they didn't provide any school for the Chinese. So the Mamie Tabe, late 1800, when she was about to go to like a registered kindergarten, their parents like brought the Mamie to the white school to register, and the school secretary and the principal say, "Oh, you're Chinese. We have no place for you." So then maybe their parents felt like, well, my kids, according to U.S. Constitution, my kids are U.S.-born citizen, and therefore she has a right to attend the public school. So this Mamie case went all the way to the California Supreme Court, and they won the case. That was late 1800, 1880 something. That is like almost like 70 years or 80 years, how many years ago before the Brown case, right? So then this school segregation case, if we only teaching about through the like a Brown case, people are already missing so many things. So one of the things that they're missing is that school segregation is not just a white and black like a story. It's a Asian story. It's a Mexican story. It's an indigenous people's story. So yeah, we need to talk about this. But the problem is our curriculum, the school textbooks and curriculum, they don't include anything about Asian American history, right? As if, so then if the kids are not learning about this in school and all they know about Asians is through their mass media, right? They're looking at the like, you know, some Hollywood movies or the like sitcom, Asian all looking like immigrants with a broken accent and a weird geeky looking like a style. Then they think, oh, Asians are all like immigrants, so we can expel them when they become the threat to the United States. So that this problem, right? Like I think it's starting from all the like a long-held racism. Those are racism reflected in the like, you know, those who are writing the curriculum. They think Asians are not important. Asians are not even belong to United States. American history is a white people's history.
So sad. I mean, like, yeah, but we can saw like if our stand up and fight, there must have some changes, right? Mm-hmm. This is a doable, this is a changeable stuff. And when you're talking about like when the Asians kid go to the kindergarten, mm-hmm. I start realize like there is some people afraid to talk about younger child about the issues such as racism, right? Mm-hmm. But what do you think the most effective age go to start this educating the youth?
Mm-hmm.
Like
about
which,
the, you know, racism, all the racial
which,
issues. Oh my gosh, I can say that you can even start when baby is not even born. You can start to read the books when the baby is in mama's belly. You start about children. So rather than reading about like, you know, bear, what do you see? Bird, what do you see? You can read about children's book more. The protagonist is about like, you know, the black child or, you know, the Asian child, and not just about the animals or white kids, right? When the even kids are before starting the school, like a preschool, right? The teachers can read them. Again, it all like, I think at the preschool age, it's good to use like a good children's book. These days we have like, although we are far to go compared to the back in the days, we have a more like a diverse, multicultural children's literature. So instead of reading like books about the bear or bunnies, right? We can read about like, you know, children's book when we teach them about the shapes and colors, but then the image is about like, you know, black child, the brown child, you know, the Asian people. So we can like, from the beginning, we can just expose that like America belongs to everybody, right? And then when they start in the school, it's not just about appreciation of like a different people, different like in the races. And then when they start the kindergarten and they learn about American history through the American heroes, right? Instead of focusing on American heroes only for the like a dead white man, right? All the president, Washington, Lincoln, like FDR, instead of the American hero, yeah, they contribute to the United States, but then also we need to expand those our canon, right? American hero, what about like, you know, not only about the Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, what about Yuriko Chiyama? What about like indigenous people, like, you know, indigenous men and women, right? Those, how to say, according to like American, like a white supremacist standard, that, oh, those are the nobody. But then, you know, we need to flip the script. Like American hero is not just what white supremacists say, oh yeah, like, you know, the white men, great white men. So yeah, even we can start from the kindergarten, we can teach about American hero instead of those like classic heroes, those alternative heroes, right? Like people of colors, men and women, young and old. We can bring, those are the American heroes. You don't have to be powerful by just treating other people and working together, being allied with the other marginalized group and pushing America to the in a better place. Those are the American hero. So students can read about, you know, these non-white, right, non-powerful, like ordinary, the everyday hero. So the students can see that, wow, yeah, indigenous people are part of the United States. Asians contribute to the United States. Mexicans are here long, like before, like a white people, and they contribute, they shape the United States. So that's where and then when they learn about, their struggle, we cannot talk about Martin Luther King or Ruby Bridge or the Yuriko Chama without talking about the racism, right? Racism from the nation founding, racism has been the core of the United States. So when you talk about their struggle, this was because of the white supremacists, and then, they treated other people. But then also I want to say that, the way that the racism, institutional racism, the way that how we approach kids to talk about this conversation, the depth of the conversation will be totally different compared to when you talk about this issue with the college kids compared to when you're talking about the kindergarten, right? So it's a developmentally appropriate, developmentally like a relevant. So then first grade or kindergarten, we can talk about Columbus, right? But then how Columbus treated the indigenous people like unfairly, unjustly. Kids can get it. They can relate. Yeah, the other day, my big sister came over, she took away my toy without my permission. That was unfair, although the depth, the seriousness of the settler colonialism totally different than the sister come over. But in that child world, that is like oh my God, my big sister, stole my toys, right? So we need to make it's relatable for the young kids. But if those are the professionals who come in, we cannot devalue elementary teachers. Oh, you're the elementary school teacher, then anybody can teach elementary. No, you cannot. To really teach this hard history, this difficult knowledge and difficult history with the young kids, it needs a professional training, professional knowledge and skill. So yeah, we can start. The short answer, you can start at any age.
Yes, you are right. Like mentioned, the teachers teaching the class about, are they have a way, or are they have a more freedom to choose which topic they're gonna teach? But some teachers does not teach that because they are worried about anything could be happen.
Exactly.
And what message do you have for the educator who may not see the need for addressing those issues in the classroom? Or who may be afraid to address issue of racism in the classroom?
Yeah. So that's the thing I wanna just say that the teachers, right? If you don't get out of your comfort zone, and if you don't preventively, actively teach against the racism, then you are part of the problem. You are the problem. You are not the solution. And also, I want to say that most of teachers, especially my students, they are elementary school teachers, right? And they all say, "I love children." So that's why I want to be a school teacher. If you really say that you love children, you need to teach, actively teach anti-racism. It's for those who are racially marginalized kids. You need to talk about the anti-racism because these are what they experience, right? Whether right now or in their after they get out from their homes and a safe place. But then also for a white children, teachers, elementary teachers also need to teach white kids about this the issue of the racism. Otherwise the kids, they will do this to harm these kids, because these kids go out to the world without any understanding or the tool to fight against or call out racism when they hear those messages. So yeah, it's the teachers, the message that, do you want to be part of the problem or you want to be the solution? Why you want to be a teacher, school teacher?
Do you think that is a good result, to use in our communicate or our school? Do you think teach the ethnic class is better solution?
Of course, ethnic studies is super important. The problem is that in ideal world, we don't need ethnic study. If U.S. history is ethnic study, that we don't need it. But the reason why we need ethnic study, because U.S. history curriculum, bottom line, it's a white people's history. It's a white people's history. Mostly it's about white people. It's written from the white people's perspective. It's about their voice, right? It's not even if they include like some like, you know, black folks, some Asian, or mostly none, but some like a Native American, but it's for their own benefit. Yeah, here and there, it's just a token. It's just token, and also they include only for those who contribute to their master narrative. Yeah, yeah, they talk about like a Martin Luther King, right? It's kind of, yeah, nonviolent protest. That sounds good. Like, white people were scared about like a violent approach to solve the conflict. So they only pick and choose for those like the non-white heroes that kind of fit their story, that kind of serve their interest. So yeah, because the history, the US history main curriculum, it's a white people's history, then, well, unless we change it, totally flip the script, then for the time being, we need ethnic study. So yeah, schools need to provide ethnic study, and I'm so like, you know, jealous of you guys. In Georgia, like barely, like it's really rare that ethnic study is offered in high school level. Like if they offer, the mostly it's African American study, but then like, you know, the Asian study in particular, barely none.
So you think like the history teacher should teach this class? It's not only have a separate class just for the ethnic.
So the ideal situation will be then, like, even if like a history curriculum, the state standard or textbook is mostly about white people's history, but the good teacher, when they have those troubling textbook and the standard, but the good teacher, when they teach about Brown versus Board of Education, when they teaching whatever they require the standard, but then also they will bring the Mamie Tape case study, right? And the Mexican, the Sylvia Mendez court case study, they also bring indigenous people, the children's boarding school experience. So then good, if the teachers are really good, right? If we have the good teacher, then, you know, the teachers will teach US history with like a given standard and the textbook, but then they will supplement by bringing counter narratives, right? The ethnic study counter narrative. But then if the history teachers don't have those like ethnic study background, it's hard, right? They don't see any problem with the current textbook. Then it's we need a separate course. Yeah, teacher need a lot of support. Yeah, and we set up for failure, and even teacher education program, we don't provide them with like a courses and, you know, the tool, knowledge and skill to teach the standard curriculum in a really different way. And most of the teacher education program don't do that. So we cannot blame the teachers.
Yeah,
just set them out without.
This is the educate system's issue.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, same thing. The high school kids, okay, you are now free to explore the world without giving them the tool to swim, right?
Yeah, yes. I strongly agree with that. Yeah. Really, like the teacher is the tour guide, just lead to the right direction. If just teacher didn't see anything about that, we don't know what's gonna be happening, really. Maybe the situation will be worse and worse, you know? And especially like the parents have this old mindset. They will talk to they will pass this mindset to next generation.
Exactly.
Yes, which is not right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Speak to the Georgia. Like you are living the Georgia, right, near in the Georgia state. What was your experience as an Asian people being living in Georgia?
Yeah, so the thing, like in the same vein as we talk about ethnic study, because, you know, my kids K to 12 curriculum, especially when it comes to social study, there's nothing about Asian American history. So as a mother, I cannot, I'm tax-paying citizen, so I cannot just rely on and assume that my kids are getting ethnic study or the Asian American history at school. I cannot assume that because they are not teaching it. So that I'm doing the double work at home. I'm doing as a mother and also as a like a full-time, you know, the professor. I'm busy, right? But at home, I need to teach my kids about, because the school don't teach it. Right? White kids, they don't have to, right? All day long at school is like what they needed, right? So that's another thing. Like, you know, I can see as a mother, I have a grievance that to see my kids are not getting what they need. So that's one thing. In my workplace, like I'm one of the few like Asians, right, as a faculty. So it's hard to get our voices being heard. Although we have some like a diverse faculty, but they're not quite like an Asian American faculty. And then even like when they do the like the Heritage Month. So always we do Heritage Month, like March is the Women's History Month. There's like the school-wide, university-wide events about like, hosting some guest speakers and the students like a speaker series. And so celebrating those like marginalized groups, their history. But then when it comes down to May, nobody even knows like May is Asian Pacific Heritage Month. There's no events about, Asian Heritage Month at all. So that's also another thing, right? Like it's a lack of representation, lack of support. Most of the even faculty support is like assuming that, oh yeah, minority faculty, that means that they think it's African American faculty. Well, there's more other, what about me, right? Like my how can I say, my need is not even like, considered in the at the administration level. And then in like a real, like the everyday life, right? Like, mostly what I see is mostly white. Like my children, their school teachers, like there's 0 Asian American teachers at their school. And then my kids are getting the message, right? It's like, oh, Asians, we must be not belonging to United States, right? Because we don't see them. So yeah.
That made me connect to the where I live, because I live in California.
Right.
Most Asians, like
right.
maybe 50-50 percentage of the city, but this kind of we live in the bubble because we don't see outside what's going to be happening. How can we help the student, like for example, like myself or the people living the city have a most Asian popularity, and to see beyond this bubble? How can we help that?
Yeah, I think first thing I want to say that like you guys are not alone. I think in most of the United States, the children grow up in a bubble. Like, if they are living in the rural Georgia, they all living in a bubble with all the like, the white people, right? When you go to church, all people looking like my grandma and grandpa, they are all white. They're all Christian. If you're living like a downtown Atlanta, grew up there, then most of the people that you hang out with and grew up with and go to school with is African Americans or Black, brown children, right? And if you are like Asians growing up like the Asian heavy the district, then you will grow up with along with the Asians. So it's not just you guys in your current the living situation. Most of the Americans, because I think we are so racially and class-wise segregated. It's not legally we are segregated, because like back in the day, white people, or the Black people, you cannot buy a house and live next to the white people's store kind of thing. These is anybody can buy the house and leave wherever they want. But then there's a racism. Oh my God, I feel so unsafe if I go to that neighborhood. So then like we are voluntarily self-segregated. And then also it's not about the racism, but then also classism, right? Even if like, I feel comfortable, but I cannot afford the house because, the rich white people, because they didn't want those non-white people like encroaching their neighborhood, they made all their housing like it's so expensive. So then poor people cannot, the poor means in the United States, oftentimes race and class go together, right? So yeah, everybody voluntarily, whether they want it or not want it, grew up in a bubble. And I think that's why the racism never ends in the United States, because we just grew up with people looking like me, only hearing the same story who think like me. So then people all assuming that white people all think, oh, Asians are all foreigners. Yeah, they are looking strange, right? Or, oh my God, they bring the disease, then we need to block them to come to the United States. And then like even Asian kids, maybe if we grow with only an Asian community, and if we're not really well educated, then we getting all the messages we're getting from the media is, oh yeah, or Hispanics or the Black, brown community only through the Hollywood media, then Asian kids may thinking, yeah, the Black, brown children, they are dangerous. They may be a criminal. or the browns are all like, illegal immigrants, right? It's not just for one ethnic group or the white people are only racist. It's within the same racial group. There's like, the racism, right? Racism and all the bias and prejudice going on. So it's not only for the one group, and then within each group we have those issues, and then it is because we all living in a bubble. All the groups are living in the bubble, and the thing is, then I think that the solution, right? And then you feel like so pessimistic. Then what do you do? I think it's although it's slow, but the biggest solution is education. Like if you compare this is what I talk to my student. They are like 20 years, about 20, early 20, like a white female, and they all grew up in like Georgia, like a rural Georgia. And then when they feel like defeated, like depressed, oh my God, the racism is so much in the United States. But in order to kind of cheer them up, I ask them but thinking about compared to your grandma, grandpa. Compared to your grandma, grandpa, your parents are a lot less racist. At least your grandma, grandpa say, oh my God, look at that Negro, or look at the yellow. They might say it, right? Because those are the terms that they grew up with. But then their parents won't say, at least to the African American community, say N-words, or to the Asians, oh, look at the Oriental. They won't say it. But even then, compared to their parents, these days, 20 years or the young, early 20s, my students, they are less racist than their parents. So and then why, right? Even if they grew up with their parents or the grandparents, and then the big solution is what they learn at school. And we need to do, although we need to do more than that currently right now, but in order to a little have a positive outlook, when you're thinking about 50 years ago or 70 years ago, how people think and treat other people compared to today. And then in order to go, we are hoping more, how can I say, the better future than these days today, the school teachers particularly, we can play a big role to teach the kids about this whole issue about the long history of racism and how to combat this racism.
Yes, I believe the time going through, the people's mindset starts to change, because they live in Georgia, they don't know, they want to know about the Asians. That is true. Your student wants to enjoy your class, they want to be open, maybe they realize something is wrong, but this is a start point, a good start point.
Right.
Also, are you here there is a social event, is a movie named Minari, right? I'm sorry, Minari, right?
Yes, Minari.
Yeah, Minari. Sorry. How you see that? Because I know this is a movie director from America, right?
Right.
This is an American movie, but the movie belongs to the foreigner, the foreigner film. Why this happened?
Oh yes, this is because of the how can I say, long legacy of this white supremacy, right? The white supremacy is not just about being American means white, and also being American also means speaking English. So those the English as the American language, it's everywhere, right? So then, although these days we are how can I say, some schools doing better job to promoting bilingual education, multilingual education, but still English is the main language. English is the standard language, and other language in the United States, those are not good language, or the not the standard, the English the standard language that is prevalent, right? So then even the movie award, when the award criteria, how outdated, outdated the criteria that, well, if the movie, most of the languages spoken is a certain percent of the language spoken in the movie is not English, then it's gonna be foreign language. Well, guess what? United States, everybody speaks different language. So then those, at least we are better with the more America being not just white, any American can be looking many different shades of colors. But then when it comes to the language, right, people only thinking being American means speaking English. So that's another area that we need to work on. So that's kind of ironic, right? Like, you know, the Minari, like how can I say, the director, and then all the story is American history, American immigrant history, but they think this is a foreign movie. So this is a kind of hilarious and then tragic and then ironic.
It's, I just feel a little bit sad, you know, like this is really traditional, like American movie. Even the language is spoken differently.
Right.
And also, do you think the language is the one of reason that Asian American not seen as the part of American culture?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It goes everywhere. It's not only about the skin color, how we look, but then also language-wise. Oh my God, they speak like a broken accent. They have a broken accent. That means that they are not legitimate or real Americans. Yeah, language is another huge part. Yeah.
What anything else you want to say, like why we are not Asian American not be part of American? What any fact?
Wow, yeah, it's all about, you know, the whiteness in United States. You know, being American means a white. That is like from the get-go at the founding of this country. Even the Constitution say like a U.S. to be an American citizen, you need to be free white men. That is as from the day one of the United States. Those ideas, although later after, you know, many decades and hundreds, like it was the challenges. So then finally 14th and 15th Amendment, finally it's not just free white men. Now that we include like a black people as a U.S. citizen, or then later on other groups. In the Asians, we need to wait like even like a late 1900 to become American citizen. So it's been a long years, right? So that means that those like idea that being American means being white and speaking English and the Christian, all those like, you know, the those ideas has been so much ingrained in U.S. history. So it's hard to break. It's hard to break. And then the way to break is like, you know, the education, only exposure to America means, you know, you can look any different shape and size and colors, speaking any language, as long as you belong to this country, live in this country, follow like, you know, the respect, you know, American ideal maxim of liberty and justice for all. Then that's the requirement being an American. Doesn't mean that American means that you need to have a certain skin color, certain language, and certain like a religion that you need to practice. So those need to be how can I say, disrupted, and I think it's education for Asians. Of course, it's because how we look, what we speak, what we eat, what religion we believe. So everything is combined.
Yeah, like all of this stuff. Let me connect with a word which is modern minority.
Right.
Like I start confused because I believe we treated people we didn't break the law is one of the most cultural things in the Asian group. Whenever it's Chinese, whenever it's Korean, like we have this tendency to not bother people, not hurting people. But do you think, like, can you explain what that's meaning that and impact of this on the Asian American community? Like white people treat that is a specific word that this kind of like stereotype, like they just root all Asians being modern minority.
So the question is the modern minority.
How this word infect the Asians react to the anti-Asian racism?
Gotcha. So this whole modern minority, it's awful. Like this whole like a racial stereotype, Asian as a modern minority, it's bad for everybody. It's only good for the white people. So then, like, first of all, this modern minority Asians are like, oh yeah, look at the Asian, these white people, white supremacists, they come up with this discourse, right? For so long, Asians like being like white people like racialized us as a forever foreigner. So whenever there's some like economic, like a depression or political, like, you know, how can I say, insecurity, then they want to expel us. Asians, or go back to your country. You are the threat to the United States. But then around the 1960s, right, when there's like a huge civil rights movement going on from the Black and brown community, and this white supremacists, they're saying, when the Black brown community, hey, United States, this whole legal system is wrong. We need to reshape how America should work. Then this white supremacists, they use Asians as a tool. Oh, look at the Asians also minority, but then they don't complain. They just, shut their mouths, work hard and study hard. Look at them. Because of their a work ethic, because of their cultural, the culture about respect for the authority, they make a success in school. They go to good college, they get a good job. So if you just work hard as Asian, Black, brown community, Black, brown people, you can also succeed. It's not because America's system is broken. It's just because you don't work hard or you are not that smart like Asian. So these white supremacists, they use in order to deny Black, brown communities, they're asking for the social change. They used Asian as a tool for a front soldier. Look at the Asian. See, Asians succeed without any a system change. That means you guys can do. So actually those the modern minority is a white supremacist, their hegemonic tool to continue those power or dominance of white people over the non-white people in the United States. But then those this modern minority, because of that, right, Black, brown community, they hate Asians, right? Okay, oh my God. So instead of Asian and the Black, brown communities have a solidarity fight against, because our common enemy is this white supremacist groups, right? Instead of we allying together to fight for our common enemy, oftentimes Black, brown community thinking, right? Oh my gosh, these Asians, we hate them, right? And also Asian people, wow, the white people, they treat us like equal white, right? They say I'm the good minority. So then these Asians wanted to get away from the Black, brown community. They wanted to be more looking like a white, more acting like a white. So then those the animosity between the Asian group versus other non-white group. So then there's another a problem going on. And also another problem with the modern minority is that for the Asian kids, right? Not all Asians are academically successful. Not all Asians are economically successful. There's so many Asian children who don't fit those stereotypes. I'm not good at math, or I'm not a straight A student. But then the society expects, oh, you're Asian, so you must be good at math. You must be good at studying, right? But not everything. Some students are struggling, right? So it's really bad for their self-esteem, right? And also it's not good for those students because they need academic help. But then teachers are thinking, oh, those kids are Asian, so they must be good at study. They don't need my help. So then the teachers or the school don't provide the support for the Asian children who need those. And then another problem is also not only academic, but also economic too. Some Asian Americans are struggling. They are not middle class and they are all lawyers and engineer in Silicon Valley. Some Asian community really suffering economically, right? But then the social policy, socio-economic policy, don't even thinking Asians are struggling. So then there's a less support, a lack of support for the struggling Asian community for the policy level. So this modern minority is bad for everybody, only except those white supremacists.
Yes, before I'm still confused why this word can cause a lot of discrimination. Now I learned that, I thought we are born with that, born with that kindness, careful, but now they become the word that people attacked us. So this make me the feeling is hard to say, but is gonna I believe it's gonna be my passion to change that,
Yay.
And I also want to ask even it's not that people all care about this issue. You can treat this kind of interview as our school a traditional, which is a problem based on learning. All year we choose a different issue, and we really have paid to the action and try to solve it. And this year is social justice. And what can you like say to those people just treat this topic as the grade, not just action? How we can change that mindset?
Although we are asking too much from the teachers, because teachers are already like their hands are tied, there's so much things to do. But then I think I want to ask the teachers to explain this project or the assignment well, so that it's not just like you are coming to school, you are doing this all the homeworks and project and tests only for the grade to go to college, and that's just done kind of thing. Just treat why we are coming to school, why you are studying. It's for your enlightenment, and also for the to make it the better world, right? So even like this social justice project, because it's a social justice, it's not just about math problem. Because of social justice project, the teacher really need to say, this is not about for you to get whether you get an A or B. By studying this, the goal is that you really know that what's going on and be passionate about it, and then study about it. And then after your study, what do you want to go the next, right? What's next for you to to solve or contribute to dismantling this injustice issue kind of thing. So I hope the teachers, right? Oftentimes as a student, oh my God, this is another project I need to do. Okay, when is it due? How much grade I need to get? What I need to do kind of thing. So that's kind of natural. It's natural for student thinking like that. But I think a lot of it's kind of depending on the teachers to kind of inspire them, explaining the purpose of doing this assignment. And I hope that students, as they get into, even if you are not kind of at the beginning, oh my God, I'm a white, and I chose this anti-Asian violence during COVID-19. So I'm not even interested at all. But as they studying about it, they will feel like, wow, this is not right. This is wrong. We need to do something. I hope that if they really get into that topic, I'm sure they will be inspired and motivated to do something beyond just submitting as an assignment and just, I'm done.
Yeah, I feel so proud when you're teaching this in the college and your student. Wow, I realized I never studied about that.
Yeah.
But what kind of change do you hope they are bringing to this society?
I think, I'm so lucky. And also I hope that my students also feel like, although they feel like overwhelmed, but, they are the teacher of young children. The change that they can bring, wow, they will be the change maker. Because as I keep saying, the education is the big solution, part of the big solution. We need to teach them young, before too late, when the kids become like a middle school and high school and college. It's hard to change. They already established the belief. So it's better to start young, exposing the kids about hey, America, it's a beautiful a country with so much to be solved. But then, America belongs to everybody, right? Being nice, being humane to each other. And then when there's somebody suffering, we need to help them each other. And then even if I see that the group who look like me did a horrible thing, that doesn't mean that I'm that horrible group, but that means that I'm responsible to speak up and to work with my friends, to solve this kind of issue. So I think the change that I hope my students bring, and I'm proud that some of my students are doing a great job, is that as a teacher of young children, they do every day, how teachers teach about not only social studies, what book they read to the kids when they teach about reading and writing, when they do the math problem, when they teach about 2 + 2 is 4, rather than just about, there's 2 bears and there's 2 bunnies, how many animals are there, instead of doing it, right? More about the current issue. Okay, there's this current issue, or the black, brown children doing something. So it's just really conscious about whatever they teach and how they teach. And then not only about the curriculum, but it's their daily interaction, the teacher interacting with the kids. If you hear any like a bias in a racial, sexist bias or religious bias in the playground or during recess time or lunchtime, teachers can hold like, that using that as a teachable moment to have like a conversation about, hey, Johnny, why you're so sad? Like, oh yeah, you got bullied. Let's talk about this, right? So yeah, teachers, they can be the change maker and within their own classroom. Teachers don't have to be on the street all the time to do like a social justice kind of thing. They are busy already in their classroom just to make sure that like, their children are feel safe to share their the questions and their worries and concerns, or whether they're naive question. Right? Teachers, why my skin color is peach and why like Johnny's skin color is black, So when those moment comes, how teachers address those and using that as a great teaching moment, that is the change that the change is made.
Thank you so much. Like, thank you the answer you gave me. Like, yes, I have a kind of like idea like how to give the result to this this issue. Do you have some hope to what do you want to say for us, this kind of student are doing some action for this issue? What is your hope to us?
Wow. First of all, I'm so proud of you guys doing this work, right? Like, sometimes like high school kids are so busy with not only about like the private life, right? Like all the like, the high school thing, but then also like academic wise, oftentimes we just say, oh yeah, I need this assignment, I need this test to be done to go to college kind of thing. But then to doing this type of a project and assignment and initiative, this is an amazing thing. So please keep continue. And also being strategy, right? I can see that if I see myself in your shoes, like, wow, college applications coming up, right? There's so much thing for me to do it. But then like maybe we can be strategic and smart. So then like doing the work that my teacher asked me to do, pass the courses, but then try to find the space. So then like, doing the assignment, but then for those like this more from the social justice lens, right? If that is about like an English literature classes and the work is about the book reviews or book reports, then choose the books or the books that kind of controversial topics, right? The book, whether it's about like, media class and it's about like the film, then choose the Minari and then talking about bring up the issue, let the other people know about all the like, the controversy and the racism and the English, like a dominance of the discourse. So then your peers know. So yeah, I know you cannot find the balance as a school student. There's so much as a student you need to do, but then if you are smart and work strategically, then using, your whatever you need to be doing for the bigger, how can I say, goals. Yeah. So I'm positive, I'm optimist. So yeah, I can see big, brighter future than what we have today because of young people like you.
Thank you so much, and give the confidence like the student like me, like, because if without the support we don't have a like the power to continue to do that. This is our purpose, like why I'm sitting here and have an interview with you. It's also give to the people who working so hard on this issue, and give them confidence. And this is all the question for this interview. And thank you so much for coming here. And
thank you,
to
Mark.
support us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. An and March, for such an impactful interview. You've definitely given us a lot to think about. While this interview was filmed a week before the shooting in Atlanta, Dr. An's words are very timely in how she talks about the hate crimes against Asians and Asian Americans happening and police and media not calling them what they are: hate crimes. The media and the police did just that in the days after the Atlanta shooting. And even the shooter got more media attention than the victims did. This behavior just works to further alienate the Asian community and devalue their experiences while ignoring the ongoing problem of racism in this country. We as people need to stop reacting and start thinking of ways to stop the entire issue. One solution to racism and hate is education. As Wayne and Mo from Rethinking Schools quotes, our country's educational system works to support racism and Eurocentrism. Therefore, history classes across the country need to go beyond textbooks and teach history from all ethnicities and include everyone's story. We need to have windows and mirrors in our classes that fully represent the true history of all the people in this country, because then it'll help us see all Americans as Americans. California is actually taking action and has recently approved a model curriculum for ethnic studies for K through 12 students. And starting next year, the Cal State system will begin to require students to take an ethnic studies class as a graduation requirement. While this is an amazing step forward, it is not enough. So, how will you, teachers and students, stop reacting and start working towards the solution? That is a wrap for this special PA News episode. Thank you all again for tuning in. I miss you guys. It's almost the end of the year. Keep going strong. Remember to continue to wash your hands. We are still in the pandemic. And I'll see you guys next episode. Bye.
If you see something, will you help me? If you see one of our sisters and brothers in need, will you help us? And so we must understand, as Asian Americans, we just need to reach out our hand to our sisters and brothers and say, help me, and I'm here. And just for one thing, I am proud to be Asian.